Welcome back to the deep dive. It seems like you guys are really interested in this whole idea of learning from adversity. We got a ton of requests to dig into Napoleon Hill's work on this. So
Yeah, it's a pretty popular topic.
for sure, we've got excerpts from his Master Key to Success lectures,
Oh, cool.
a chapter from his book, and even
Good.
some modern day examples
Nice.
to kind of bring it all to life.
It's fascinating stuff, especially because Hill goes beyond that usual, dust yourself off advice. He gives us a framework for actually extracting benefit from those tough situations.
I love that. He actually uses this phrase, the seed of an equivalent benefit.
Oh, wow.
And at first it sounds kind of mystical, right?
Yeah.
But he gives some pretty compelling examples.
He does. He argues that adversity isn't something to just endure. It's almost designed to push us towards growth.
Okay, so not just grinning and bearing it.
Right.
What does Hill actually suggest we do with these challenges?
Well, first he emphasizes that everyone faces adversity. It's not about being, exempt from challenges, but how you react to them.
So it's about shifting our mindset when those inevitable tough times arrive.
Exactly. Recognizing the potential hidden within those experiences.
In his lectures, Hill says it seems like everyone is intended to experience adversity. He calls it nature's way of disciplining people to learn how to take possession of their own minds. Almost like adversity is this built-in training program.
Wow.
And the prize is mastering your own thoughts and reactions.
Okay, so that's a really interesting way to put it. But if we're not supposed to just grin and bear it, what does he suggest we actually do with these challenges? Does he, lay out a step-by-step process?
He does. In his book, he outlines 3 key phases. First, analyze. Really dig deep and understand why the setback happened. Not just wallowing in the, why me, but a more active detective-like approach.
Precisely. Then you've got to extract the lesson. What did this experience teach you about yourself, your approach, even the situation itself?
This is where that seed idea starts to take shape. It's like sifting through the dirt to find that nugget of wisdom.
Absolutely. And finally, refocus. How can this experience and the lessons you've learned make your goals sharper and your plan stronger?
So not letting those setbacks derail us, but actually using them to refine our trajectory.
Exactly. He even says that once you understand this principle, you'll actually start looking for that seed of benefit in every challenging situation.
Almost like training yourself to see the opportunity instead of just the obstacle.
Yeah. To really bring this to life, let's look at some of the examples that Hill uses.
Yes. Abstract principles are great, but stories.
Oh, for sure.
I always find them way more memorable. How about the one with Milo C. Jones, the farmer who had that the incredibly challenging experience?
You mean the little pig sausage guy?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hill talks about how he owned this small farm, just making ends meet, and then was stricken with double paralysis.
Wow, that's devastating.
It is.
It's hard to imagine a more difficult situation.
But instead of giving up, Jones focused on what he could control his mind.
Okay.
And it was during that really, really difficult time that he came up with the idea for little pig sausage.
So from that challenge, from that complete loss of physical ability came this hugely successful business.
It did.
It really shows how adversity can force us to tap into those resources we wouldn't normally access.
It does, and that's a perfect example of finding that seed.
Yeah.
But, it begs the question, are we only creative when our backs are against the wall? Do we need that level of pressure to innovate?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you wonder, what about those of us who haven't faced those kinds of extreme challenges? Are we missing out on that creative spark?
That's where Hill's idea of proactively seeking out the seed of benefit comes in.
We don't have to wait for a major crisis.
Right.
We can apply this mindset to everyday challenges.
Right.
Even the small stuff.
Okay, so even if it's just like a frustrating work project or a disagreement with a friend, we can use those experiences to learn and grow.
Exactly. Think of it as mental weightlifting.
Oh, interesting.
You don't start with the heaviest weights. You build up your strength gradually.
Right.
Same with facing adversity. Each small challenge you overcome prepares you for the bigger ones.
That makes a lot of sense. So maybe it's not about the size of the adversity, but our attitude toward it. It's like instead of asking, why me, we ask, what can I learn from this?
Exactly. Speaking of shifting our attitude, that's a perfect segue to another example Hill uses. Someone who went through an incredibly public challenge.
Oh, okay.
President Franklin D. Roosevelt.
Oh, yes. A leader facing a very personal adversity.
Roosevelt was struck with polio in the prime of his life, and it left him with very limited use of his legs. I can only imagine the physical and emotional toll that must have taken.
Yeah, and he'll contrast that with the image of someone, giving up and resorting to begging on a street corner.
Yeah.
But Roosevelt did the opposite. He transformed that affliction into a source of self-reliance and determination.
And he didn't just overcome it personally, right?
No.
He went on to lead the country through some of its most challenging times. It's a reminder that adversity can build resilience, that ability to bounce back from setbacks, which is,
it's invaluable.
Invaluable no matter what you're pursuing.
It makes you wonder, though, is that level of resilience something you're born with? Or is it something you develop through facing these kinds of challenges?
Right. Is it nature or nurture?
Yeah.
Because you hear stories of people who just seem to have this incredible inner strength. But then you also see people who, through facing adversity, develop a kind of grit they didn't have before.
Right.
So maybe it's a bit of both.
It probably is. But what's important, as Hill points out, is that we all have that capacity for growth. Yeah.
We can all learn to be more resilient, even if it doesn't come naturally at first.
So we've got these powerful examples, but what are some of those specific seeds of benefit that Hill mentions?
Oh, we had a whole list.
I know.
He talks about how adversity can force us to break bad habits.
Okay.
Which, we might not be willing to do when things are comfortable.
It's like that saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Right.
Sometimes we need that push to get out of our own way.
Exactly. He also talks about how adversity can make us more humble.
Okay.
It can chip away at that ego and make us more open to learning and help from others.
Which, let's be honest, can be a good thing for a lot of us.
Definitely. And he also emphasizes the idea that adversity can push us to be more creative.
I like that.
When the old ways of doing things no longer work,
Yeah.
we're forced to think outside the box.
It's like that saying, pressure creates diamonds.
Yeah.
Or in our case, maybe seeds of benefit.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, those benefits can ripple out into other areas of our lives.
Okay.
Stronger relationships, better decision-making, a more resilient approach to challenges in general.
It's almost like adversity is this, not fun,
Right.
but necessary training ground for developing a stronger, more resourceful self.
And it's important to note that Hill doesn't present all of this in a way that blames people for their setbacks.
Okay.
He also dives into some of the common causes of failure.
Right.
Things like drifting without purpose,
Okay.
lack of self-discipline, and fear.
So not just look at these successful people, but also acknowledging the very real pitfalls that can trip us up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's almost like he's offering a checklist for things to be aware of so you can course correct if you find yourself veering off track.
It's like, here's where people often get stuck, so pay attention, learn from their mistakes, and avoid making them yourself.
Exactly.
It's actually quite generous and helpful when you think about it. It is. He's not just saying, here's the path to success, but also, here are the warning signs so you can stay on course.
Right.
And speaking of staying on course,
Yes.
remember those modern-day stories you mentioned?
Oh, yes. They're incredibly inspiring examples of people overcoming immense challenges to achieve incredible things.
Right.
Like the story of Dr. Henry Viscardi, who was born without legs. That's a challenge I can't even begin to fathom.
He could have easily given in to despair, but instead, he founded a center for disabled children, helping them thrive and reach their full potential.
Wow. That's amazing. It speaks to the idea that even in the face of incredible adversity, you can still create a positive impact on the world.
It really does. And then there's the story of Debbie Fields, the founder of Mrs. Fields Cookies.
Wait, Mrs. Fields Cookies?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
I can't believe her business almost went under at one point.
I know. Rapid expansion, overwhelming debt.
Wow.
But instead of letting that failure define her, she learned from it, restructured her business model, and came back even stronger.
Talk about resilience.
Right.
That's a fantastic example of turning a setback into a springboard for even greater success.
It shows that applying these principles, even in the midst of a very public and potentially devastating situation, can lead to incredible outcomes.
It's so easy to get caught up in the doom and gloom of difficult situations.
Oh, yeah.
But these stories are a powerful reminder that there's always another perspective, another possibility waiting to be discovered.
And that's really at the heart of Hill's message. It's not about avoiding adversity, but about learning to see it as a teacher,
Right.
a catalyst for growth, and a source of unexpected opportunities.
It almost sounds like he's suggesting we should actually embrace adversity.
Oh.
Seek it out, even.
I don't think he's saying we should go looking for trouble.
Right, right.
But he does emphasize the importance of being prepared for it.
Okay.
Because it's going to happen whether we like it or not.
So it's less about seeking out hardship and more about shifting our perspective when those tough times inevitably arrive.
Right.
It's about seeing those challenges not as roadblocks, but as opportunities for growth.
Exactly. And I think that's a great place to wrap up this first part of our deep dive. We've laid the groundwork, explored Hill's core principles, and looked at some inspiring examples.
And I'm already starting to see those seeds of benefit everywhere.
Yeah, me too. You know, it's interesting because it's not just about overcoming those big dramatic setbacks. Hill also talks about those everyday challenges we all face. You know, those smaller frustrations and disappointments that can add up over time.
You mean like those moments when you're like, I just want to give up on this project, or you get that rejection email, or you have a disagreement with someone you care about.
Exactly.
Yeah, those can feel just as difficult in their own way.
It can.
Even if they're not as, life-altering as some of the examples we've discussed.
Absolutely. And Hill's principles apply just as much in those situations. It's about taking that pause, analyzing the situation, and asking yourself, okay, what's the lesson here? What can I learn from this?
So instead of just reacting emotionally, you take a step back and you try to find the takeaway.
Right.
It's like training your brain to be a lesson-seeking machine.
Yes.
Even when it would be easier to just give in to frustration.
Right. And that's where the real growth happens, because each of those small victories, each time you choose learning over giving up, it builds that resilience muscle.
I like that analogy. It's like those tiny deposits into your mental strength bank account.
Exactly.
Over time, it really adds up.
Now, one thing that really struck me about Hill's work is his emphasis on personal responsibility.
Okay.
Even in the face of really challenging circumstances.
Yeah.
He always comes back to this idea that we have the power to choose our response.
You mean not playing the victim, even when things feel really unfair?
Exactly. He talks about how we have this responsibility to ourselves, to our loved ones, even to a higher power to take possession of our own minds.
Okay. And direct them towards the ends we desire.
That's a powerful concept.
It is.
It's like saying, no matter what happens externally, I still have agency over my own thoughts and actions.
And that agency is what allows us to turn adversity into opportunity.
Right.
Because if we believe we're powerless, if we're just at the mercy of circumstance, then we're much more likely to be defeated by challenges.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you believe you're a victim, then you'll act like one.
Right.
But if you believe you're capable of overcoming obstacles, then you'll start looking for ways to do it.
Precisely. And Hill ties this back to the idea of taking possession of your mind. He talks about how it's like this untapped resource, this incredible tool that we all have access to.
Right.
But we often don't realize its full potential.
But like any tool, you have to learn how to use it effectively.
Exactly. And that's what Hill's principles are all about.
Okay.
They're like the instruction manual for your mind,
right,
showing you how to harness its power to overcome challenges and achieve your goals. It's like he's saying, here are the buttons, here are the levers.
Right.
Now go out and create something amazing. Which brings us to one of those buttons, the principle of a positive mental attitude. Remember that article you sent about the power of optimism?
Oh, yeah.
This is where it all ties in.
Hill talks about it constantly, and it's not about pretending everything is perfect,
right,
or ignoring the very real challenges we face.
Right.
It's about choosing to focus on the possibilities, on the solutions, rather than getting bogged down in negativity and despair.
I think that's something we can all relate to.
Yeah.
When you're facing a problem, you can either say, this is terrible, I'm doomed, or you can say, okay, what are my options? How can I approach this in a way that leads to a positive outcome?
Exactly. And that's not to say it's easy. Maintaining a positive mental attitude, it takes work.
Yeah, it does.
Especially when you're in the thick of it. But the more you practice choosing optimism and solution-oriented thinking, the stronger it becomes.
So it's like any other skill, you have to practice it to get good at it.
Hill even acknowledges that sometimes it takes a conscious effort to shift your perspective, to choose to see the seed of benefit instead of just the difficulty.
Right.
He actually gives a really interesting example from his own life.
Oh, okay.
About the passing of his mother when he was just 8 years old.
Wow, that must have been incredibly difficult for him at that age.
It was.
It's hard to imagine finding anything positive in that kind of situation.
Obviously, losing a parent at any age is an incredibly painful experience.
Yeah.
But his father eventually remarried, and his stepmother became a source of immense support and inspiration for him.
That's beautiful. It sounds like she played a really important role in his life.
She did. He even credits her with encouraging him to pursue his passion.
Oh, wow.
Which ultimately led him to meet Andrew Carnegie.
Right.
And receive the commission that launched his entire career.
So from that incredibly painful loss came this whole chain of events that led to his life's work.
It did.
That's really profound. It kind of makes you wonder, if that hadn't happened, if his mother hadn't passed away, would he have still ended up on the same path?
That's a question we can't answer, of course.
Right.
But it does highlight the interconnectedness of our experiences.
Yeah.
Even the painful ones can sometimes lead us to something unexpected and meaningful.
It's like a reminder to trust that even when we can't see it, there's a bigger picture unfolding.
Yeah.
And sometimes those difficult experiences are what lead us to something even more meaningful.
It's about having faith, not necessarily, religious faith, but faith in the process. Faith that even if it doesn't make sense right now, there's a reason for what's happening and we can learn and grow from it.
That reminds me of something you mentioned earlier about Hill's perspective on historical events. He talks about how what might seem like a defeat or a loss can actually lead to unexpected positive outcomes in the long run.
Yes. He uses the example of the American Revolution. At the time, the British probably saw the loss of the American colonies as a complete disaster.
Right.
A major setback for their empire.
Which makes sense from their perspective.
Yeah.
But it's interesting to think about how our perspective on events shifts over time.
It does.
How something that seems negative in the moment can later be seen as a turning point.
Exactly. And Hill argues that, if the American colonies hadn't won their independence, the British Empire might have been weaker.
Okay.
And less able to withstand the challenges of World Wars I and II.
So from their perspective, losing the colonies might have actually been a contributing factor to their survival in the long run.
That's Hill's argument. And it's a reminder that sometimes what seems like a loss or a defeat can actually be a blessing in disguise.
Which goes back to that idea of having faith in the process, right?
Yes.
Even when things are tough, even when it feels like we're failing, there might be something positive unfolding that we can't yet see.
Yeah. It also highlights the importance of perspective.
Right.
Our view of adversity is often shaped by our immediate circumstances.
Right.
But with time and distance, we might see things differently.
Right.
Maybe even recognize the seed of benefit that was planted in the midst of that challenge.
It's like that saying, you win some, you lose some, but you always learn something.
Right.
But it's not just about passively accepting adversity, right?
So.
Hill is really big on the idea of using those challenges to fuel personal growth and development.
Absolutely. He talks about how adversity can force us to develop new skills, tap into hidden talents, and to build resilience and grit.
So instead of just saying, oh, well, this happened, let's move on. We should actively use those experiences to become a stronger, wiser, more capable person.
Exactly. It's like when you're thrown into the deep end, you either sink or you learn to swim.
Right.
And Hill is all about becoming a really strong swimmer.
I love that analogy. And Hill even talks about how adversity can help us to refine our goals, to clarify what's truly important to us, and to make more intentional choices about how we want to live our lives.
It's like those challenges we face become a crucible, a refining fire that helps us shed what's no longer serving us.
Right.
And emerge stronger and more aligned with our true purpose.
That's a beautiful image. It's like those challenges are actually part of the process of creating something beautiful and valuable.
They are.
Like, forging a sword or sculpting a masterpiece.
And it's not just about individual growth. Hill also talks about how learning from adversity can help us to create a better world.
Oh,
when we overcome our own challenges, when we learn to turn setbacks into opportunities, we become more empathetic and compassionate towards others.
Because we've been there ourselves, right?
Yeah.
We understand what it's like to struggle.
Exactly.
To face those difficult moments.
Yeah.
And have to dig deep to find the strength to keep going.
Exactly. And that understanding allows us to connect with others on a deeper level, offer support and encouragement, and to work together to create a more just and compassionate society.
It's like those shared experiences, those moments of vulnerability and resilience can actually be what binds us together.
Right.
And inspires us to create a better world.
And Hill goes even further, saying that overcoming adversity is a responsibility we have to each other, to future generations, and to humanity as a whole.
So it's not just about our own individual journey. It's about contributing to something bigger than ourselves.
Exactly. And he even offers a really interesting perspective on how to approach our own past experiences.
Okay.
Hill suggests that we go back and revisit our past failures.
Wait, what? Go back and relive all those painful moments. That doesn't sound very pleasant.
No, not to dwell on them or beat ourselves up, but to see if there's anything we missed.
Okay.
Any untapped potential or lessons that we weren't able to see at the time.
Oh, I see. It's like going back with a fresh perspective, maybe seeing those experiences in a new light.
Exactly. Because often, with time and perspective, we can see things more clearly. We can recognize patterns, connect the dots, and extract wisdom that wasn't available to us in the heat of the moment.
So instead of just trying to forget about our past mistakes, we can actually use them as a source of learning and growth.
Precisely. And that's something I think we can all benefit from.
Yeah.
Taking the time to reflect on our past experiences, both the successes and the failures, and seeing what lessons we can glean from them.
It's almost like turning our failures into a library of wisdom.
I like that.
A resource we can draw on to make better decisions and create a more fulfilling life.
A library of wisdom. And it's a library that's constantly expanding as we continue to face new challenges and learn from them.
So it's like a lifelong journey of learning and growth.
It is.
Fueled by the very things that we might initially perceive as obstacles or setbacks.
And that's a really powerful message, especially in a world that often celebrates success and downplays failure.
Right.
Hill reminds us that those failures are actually some of our greatest teachers.
And they can be the stepping stones to something even greater. They can?
But it's up to us to choose to see them that way.
Right.
To extract the lessons they offer.
Yeah.
And to use those experiences to fuel our growth and to inspire others.
And that brings us to the final part of our deep dive.
Okay.
Where we'll explore Hill's ultimate message and what it means for you, our listener.
Okay, so we spent this whole deep dive unpacking Hill's ideas about learning from adversity. We've explored his core principles.
Yeah.
We've analyzed real-world examples.
Yeah.
From presidents to sausage makers.
It's been a wild ride.
Right. And even delved into those everyday challenges that we all face.
But what's fascinating is that Hill doesn't just stop at overcoming adversity. He suggests going back and revisiting past failures.
Wait, really? Like relive all those painful moments?
Not to dwell on them or anything, but to see if there's something we missed, some untapped potential or lessons we weren't able to see at the time.
Oh, I see. Like going back with fresh eyes.
Exactly.
And maybe, seeing things in a new light. Because often, with time and perspective, we can see things more clearly. We might recognize patterns, connect the dots, and extract wisdom that wasn't available to us in the heat of the moment.
So it's almost like a treasure hunt.
It is.
Through your own mistakes.
It's like turning those past experiences into valuable data points, like a personal case study we can use to learn and grow.
Yeah, that makes sense. But what about those times when it feels like there isn't a seed of benefit? What if the adversity is just plain awful?
That's a great question.
With no silver lining in sight.
And it's one I think a lot of us grapple with. Hill acknowledges that sometimes those benefits might not be immediately apparent.
Right.
He encourages us to trust that even when we can't see it, there's a bigger picture unfolding.
It's like that saying, you have to go through the storm to appreciate the rainbow.
Exactly.
And even if we don't see the rainbow right away, the storm itself might make us stronger, more resilient, more prepared for whatever comes next.
And it highlights the importance of faith. Not necessarily religious faith, but faith in the process. Faith that even if it doesn't make sense right now, there's a reason for what's happening and we can learn and grow from it.
And maybe the seed of benefit isn't always a tangible outcome. Maybe it's a shift in perspective.
Right.
A newfound strength.
It could be.
Or a deeper understanding of ourselves.
So to bring it all back to where we started, the real essence of learning from adversity isn't about avoiding challenges. It's about recognizing those moments as opportunities to rewrite the narrative, discover hidden strengths, and create something even more meaningful and impactful.
And approaching those challenges with the right mindset.
Exactly.
Seeing them not as roadblocks, but as detours that might lead us to an even more beautiful destination.
Remember those examples we discussed earlier? Milo C. Jones finding entrepreneurial success in the midst of paralysis.
Yeah.
President Roosevelt leading a nation through crisis after being struck with polio. Dr. Viscardi turning his personal challenge into a lifelong mission of service. These aren't just stories of overcoming adversity, they're testaments to the human capacity.
Right.
For growth, resilience, and transformation.
They're reminders that within every challenge, no matter how daunting, lies the potential for something extraordinary. And it's up to each of us to uncover those seeds of benefit, those hidden opportunities for growth, and to use them to fuel our own journeys and to inspire others.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'll leave you with a final thought from Napoleon Hill himself. He said, "Every adversity, every failure, every heartache carries with it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. Take that seed, plant it, nurture it, and see what blossoms."
Until next time, keep diving deep.